If you're struggling with Omega, don't feel bad, but heed these words. People are getting worked in the neutral by this thing. I love it. It's even got the game pushing over 100K among top games on Steam again. What's up with that? I thought y'all PCs couldn't run this. So let's start by addressing the fact that the Tokyo Game Show build with 9 carts is not what we're playing. Even the story quest for Omega is a 3-cart affair. That said, folks should certainly make sure they eat a meal with insurance baked into it so you can get 4 carts, and consider running with Moxie Meal, High Defense, a support build, or possibly even Guts to minimize fainting. Other prep-related things to consider: make sure you equip the Soul of the Pictomancer item in your pouch. Using the Pictomancer spells during the fight can help you apply some easy damage and sometimes flinch Omega, so it's useful to have this on you. Omega is weak to Thunder and Dragon elements and is most affected by the Blast status. I'd recommend going with Elemental personally, as the damage will amount to more over time, but do what's most comfortable. It's also useful, dare I say imperative, to carry a fire element weapon as your secondary. This is for the damage check against the Nerscylla clone, who you have to beat in a small amount of time to get the protection barrier against Omega's Delta attack. On the subject of fire, I'd consider going into this fight with some type of fire resistance, considering that many of Omega's attacks are fire-based. And if you can, slot in some stun resistance too, as there will be instances where you'll get hit successive times. Steadfast will prevent you from cowering on the ground like a little bitch. Now for the hunt itself, it's important to remember that this quest is meant to be played almost like a Final Fantasy XIV raid, where you have folks playing specific roles, and the most important of those will be the tank. This player, if playing their role correctly, will be drawing the bulk of the aggro coming from Omega. You do this by attacking its head, and you'll see Omega's enmity trigger. This will give the rest of the party an opportunity to attack Omega without it targeting them with its most lethal attacks. What I've seen work the best is for the tank to stay on top of attacking Omega's head, and for other folks, mainly folks playing weapons without the ability to guard, to stick to attacking Omega's limbs. Weapons that do sever or shot damage should focus the hind legs, and blunt weapons should focus the front legs. And it can be useful to have 2 players trade the aggro back and forth, because later in the fight, Omega applies an HP debuff that you can only get off of you while you're not aggroing him, so keep that in mind. I'd also like to recommend a couple of folks playing the healer role. 3 of the 4 areas in this hunt have boulders and giant rocks you can drop on Omega's head. Try your damnedest to land as many of these. Some of them will simply stagger Omega for some nice damage, but there's quite a few that will actually knock Omega out for a quick moment and give your team an opening. Utilizing shields and barriers in this fight is very important, and there's several ways you can get these. The easiest way is by killing the glowing Omega micros that come with the swarms. The second way is to break it off of Omega. It'll straight up drop a shield that you can equip in your slinger and use at will. And the third way is to focus strike Omega's weak point. After its atomic ray attack, this vulnerability appears like a wound and will not only stagger it, but give you a barrier. There's also a barrier you get for completing the damage check, but we'll revisit that stretch of the hunt in a moment. When Omega moves to the second area, the arena gets a little bigger, and some of Omega's most lethal moves come from it closing the distance. One of the moves you just want to be ready to dodge, counter, or guard against, that's this charge move where you get bum rushed. You typically see the thrusters under Omega let out exhaust before it comes rocketing at you, and sometimes it'll do this repeatedly, so if you get hit by this, don't get off the ground until you know it's finished charging. There's also this laser attack. This move is pretty much a cart if it hits you point blank, but it does leave Omega vulnerable for a short bit. I typically use this as an opportunity to run alongside and cast a Pictomancer spell. The starboard and larboard wave cannons. This is a very devastating attack, and it actually is very easy to telegraph, but you have to be paying attention. The game will actually tell you which wave cannon Omega is about to shoot. If it's the starboard wave cannon, it's turning to the right, so you want to position yourself on its left side as quickly as possible. And as you can imagine, larboard is left, so same thing, go to the right. And if you're playing against Savage Omega, keep in mind he'll sometimes do this move twice in a row and mix up which way he turns, so pay close attention to which way that it is so you don't get pooped on. Okay, in the middle of the third phase of this fight is probably the most important section of it. You will be greeted with a relentless damage check where there's a bunch of Omega minis swarming you and a cloned version of Nerscylla that shoots laser beams. This is where you're going to have to pull out that fire-based weapon and try your best to stay as close to Nerscylla as you can. Mainly because it fires attacks that will clear the area around it and will do what it can to create separation from you and get you to fail this damage check. You can get some extra damage on Nerscylla by utilizing cactors that appear in the area. When you're close enough, just press a button and they'll spin in circles, shooting needles every which way. There's also these little creatures called Morbles that are scooting around on the ground, but you can actually aggro them and make them come after you. They emit this toxic cloud that poisons and paralyzes anything that touches it, including Nerscylla. This is a great way to get the clone to stay still and allow your team to well on it and complete that crucial damage check, which otherwise will wipe your entire squad. The last phase basically puts all your learnings about the first 3 together and cranks them up to 100. This is definitely the easiest place to cart in this quest. Even when aggroed, spamming attacks like it's nobody's business. This is where the healers really have to show up. Omega repeatedly activates his Panctocrator mode in this section, which basically makes his attacks more powerful and is much more aggressive. This is where you'll want to damage and wound at least 3 legs to get it to calm the fuck down. Doing so will score you a knockdown, will typically drop a shield, and give your team a lot of time to deal some damage to that annoying ass robot. That right there is the base level stuff that I can think of. Of course, there are some more advanced tactics that my guild and our community have been using. If you're interested in catching these, pull up to one of my live streams or catch a VOD or 2 on YouTube. Happy hunting and good luck.